Secretary Perry, today nearly 16,000 megawatts of offshore wind capacity and more than 4,000 offshore wind turbines have been installed in Europe alone. In comparison, only 30 megawatts of offshore wind has been installed in our country. More important, Europe has charged ahead with the next generation of floating offshore wind projects in France, Norway, Portugal, and Scotland. France alone has funded 4 floating demonstration projects, and it's about to put out to bid commercial floating wind farms. The problem is that the United States is falling further and further behind in the global race to harness clean, renewable offshore wind energy. And yet the irony is within 50 miles off the US shores, there is enough offshore wind capacity to power the country 4 times over. And nearly 60% of that capacity can be harnessed using floating offshore wind technologies. This is an area where a consortium led by the University of Maine is leading the way. And I'm very excited about this possibility. I would ask you, is the department prioritizing the advancement of offshore floating wind turbines as part of its domestic innovative clean energy technologies?
Senator, the short answer is yes. If I could expand on that just a touch. The university, it's the main Aquaventus 1 project, I think is a really important step to, this obvious at the University of Maine, and they've been a very good partner, integral partner with us at DOE in the advancement of this offshore floating platforms in the coastal regions. And it uses a really, Senator Coons, this is some of that technology that you were talking about, and a really unique floating platform, and very lightweight concrete. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time about the details here, but this is some really fascinating type of innovation. And the university is currently in a budget period 2 of 5, and I think it's received somewhere just north of $13 million in funding to date. And in 2018, DOE supported granting the project a no-cost time extension to complete their budget period. They had a couple of milestones to make. So anyway, long story short here on this is we are very supportive of that. And if I could just take a little turn off the road here, because we were talking about offshore and the great potential of offshore. And you mentioned Europe. Fatih Birol, who's the head of the International Energy Agency, was in town, I don't know, 5 weeks ago, and he said, Secretary, I bring you a present. And I was like, oh, good, I love presents. He said, I just want you to know that your home state, Texas, just surpassed Europe as the percentage of power that is produced in the renewable realm. So my point is there's some states out there, yours being one of them, Senator Feinstein, that are really moving forward on the renewable side, particularly with solar and wind. The state of Texas, chose to go more heavily in the wind side. And I think everything that we can do here to empower states and kind of get out of their way, if you will, to go develop these alternative sources of energy, whether it's advanced nuclear reactors, Mr. Chairman, or whether it's these offshore wind platforms, is very, very wise for us as a country.
Thank you. I know my time has expired, so I will submit my questions on the weatherization program, which has a great return for every dollar invested, and my question on the role of the department in driving advanced manufacturing for the record. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I answer her question
Yes.
very briefly, give you my answer on the weatherization program?
Yes.
And this kind of goes back to my wearing my governor's hat again. I think the real role, not that the dollars don't need to flow, but I don't think the dollars need to flow through the Department of Energy and for us to pick winners and losers, if you will. I think if we would trust the states to run these weatherization programs, that would be, it's kind of the argument that we've made historically about block granting on some of the Medicaid dollars that would flow back to the states. I look at this as the same thing. As a governor, my deal is I really don't need your help, DOE, to decide where these dollars can best be spent in my home state.
Well, I'm fine with having
Yes,
the
ma'am.
money flow to the states. I just want
Right.
the money to flow.
Yes, ma'am. And I don't, and I think it would flow more smoothly and efficiently, and frankly, get more lead on the target, so to speak, if you did it that way instead of sending it through a agency of government here in Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Collins. Senator Udall.